of the media industry. They're joined by Jeffrey Katzenberg, the Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder and Director of DreamWorks Animation. A round of applause, please.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us, and a big thank you to Jeffrey Katzenberg and James Murdoch for joining us too. I think, in the Cannes debate, we historically have focused on technology first, and then we had a group of the most powerful CMOs like Keith Weed at Sessions. We started off with the new technology companies, and Cannes, Terry Savage and Cannes have built further constituencies apart from agencies and clients. They've encouraged media owners, both legacy, old media owners, if I put it like that, and new ones to come to Cannes. And this year we've been trying to attract not only media companies, but content developers and owners. And we have two of the biggest content owners in the world here, from the actually quite similar in many respects. Jeffrey is Chairman and CEO of DreamWorks Animation. Jeffrey left Disney.
That's a polite way of putting it.
What was the? Wait a minute. It was a $250 million boot, wasn't it?
It was a boot. What do you want me to say?
That was Geffen came in and saved your socks there. And then you started DreamWorks with Stephen and with young David Geffen. And then you sold DreamWorks Pictures to Paramount. How long ago was that? A couple of years ago?
About 7 years ago.
7 years ago. And now you're focused on DreamWorks Animation. And you make about 2 or 3 animated films every year. That's all you do.
Yes.
David Geffen and Jeff control 70% of DreamWorks. So it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, really. It's a $2 billion company. And then on my right is James Murdoch. Probably doesn't need any introduction. It won't stop me from introducing him. Market cap of about $47 billion. A little bit bigger. That puts me in my place. Revenues of 33 billion. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Films and entertainment, about 20%, a little over 20%. Cable, 20%. Newspapers, 18%. TV, 13%. And then this strange category, IMS, I've initialed it as, what is it? Marketing services?
Yeah, marketing services. So it's marketing services, coupons, freestanding inserts, things like that.
Okay. And North America is about 55% of the business. Europe about 30%, and Australia 16%. Okay. And you're a lifer.
Yes.
Well, you're not a lifer in this right?
No, the last 16 years.
Yeah, because you started your own company, didn't you?
Yes, a small business. It's good to fail sometimes.
Did it
You
fail?
learn a lot. No, but it wasn't very big.
And did you graduate from university, or did you?
No, I'm on what they call there a leave of absence.
Can you still go back?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. If all else fails, back to Harvard, was it?
I hope so.
Okay, fine.
When I'm about 70. It'd be like the Rodney Dangerfield movie.
Okay. Now, so thanks once again. We many years ago we sort of talked about, Terry and I talked about trying to get James Cameron here as well during the Avatar process, but we have the next best thing, because this is the man or the company that funded Avatar, and we'll get to that at some point in time. I just want to try and start at the beginning. First of all, anybody want to send any questions? msorrell@wpp.com, 2 R's and 2 L's, and we'll try and respond to it. But I want to start where I started with Paul Pullman, which is I've noticed a change in the last 4 or 5 weeks in terms of the attitude of people, not the micro, the macro. Jeff, James, you see the same?
Yeah, it depends on where you are in the world. I mean, you know, I actually came back last week, as you know, Art, and I actually went around the world and was here in Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, 14 countries in a 15, 16-day period of time, literally. And depending on where you are, there's a very, there's a different sense. There's a, certainly when you're in, Asia, Australia, things are pretty charged up. Very enthusiastic business and consumer. I think here in Europe, a great deal of uncertainty, probably, the hangover of Greece and Spain and Portugal, which is going on, I think is pretty unsettling for people. Remember, we have not actually ever really come out of a rather devastating, to say the least, recession. Same thing in the States. It's just we look at every day the micro, and whether literally, I think the other day, unemployment was filings were up 9,000, from 410,000 reported to 419,000, and just that 9,000 unsettles everybody, just directionally.
Certainly unsettled as the president in front of an election.
Well, politics in America right now are really fractured, and so everything there is, in a pretty state.
James?
No, I think Jeffrey's right. I mean, I think depending on where you stand, you see different things. But we definitely, I think, first of all, there is just an extraordinary shift that has been going on, and we're looking to see what are the kind of growth drivers on a going forward basis, and where are they going to come from? And we see in our, in our Asian business, growing very strongly, but also in some areas where, for our business, we're often a new business going in. We're a challenger kind of company. In Sky Italia or Sky Deutschland, et cetera, there's a lot of growth in terms of taking share in markets that on a macro basis aren't great. But I think you're absolutely right. From a sort of, in the last couple of weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, definitely you hear people talking about it. The mood is not great. But I think hopefully, companies are in a good enough shape after the shock of 2008-9 that actually, we're in a better position to go forward. And I know we feel pretty healthy about the business, but very nervous about the macro environment. I think that's true. That's true in a lot of firms, actually. But the mood music has definitely shifted, and people are fearful.
Now, Jeffrey and James had dinner last night at Tetty, and were plotting this session between them, plotting the agenda. So I have no control over the agenda. When we were discussing before, we had
How many people in the audience actually believe that? Can we have a show of hands?
I changed my list of questions. When we had the pre-meeting, Jeffrey initiated a discussion about, and we sort of got on it with Paul a bit, the balance between art and commerce was where you put it. And it's fundamental to Cannes, because Cannes now has been renamed, as you know, the Festival of Creativity. It used to be about advertising purely, and it's broadened enormously. Do you want to say a little bit, Jeffrey, about your work?
I think it's something that my industry, Hollywood, very, very much shares in common with many, if not most of you that are here in the room, which is that we are this amazing sort of balance between commerce and art. And I don't mean arty art, I mean artistic and creative expression. And it's a really precarious balance, that there's a razor's edge. And when you're on the, skating on the edge of that, and you find that right balance between art and commerce, the rewards are spectacular. And they're spectacular in any field, and whether it's James Cameron or a great TV show or a great ad campaign in it, the rewards are spectacular. When those things get tipped either side of that scale, and right now today, for a number of factors, particularly I know in Hollywood, I think they are out of balance. And, you know, we've just come through probably, if you look at movies out of Hollywood in the last 6 months, it's arguably the worst and least creative work product in a decade or more. It's just, you know, it's just been a poor run. And some of that's just the, you know, unique and unpredictability of it, but some of it's market forces. And there is an uncertainty right now, and there's a fear. And you know, originality and creativity depend on, they require risk. And if you take the equation of that, risk equals some failure. And if you don't have the ability, the right, the financial stability to have some degree of failure in what you do, you just go back and now you lose creativity, you lose risk in it. And so it's a very a delicate equation. And when it gets out of balance, I said to you know, when I look at the advertising, I'm someone who, for you know, decades, is an appointment viewer of the Super Bowl to see the ads. I don't really care who's playing. I don't follow football. Doesn't really matter to me. I actually go get the chips and soda when the game's on. Because I don't want to miss the ads.
I should say,
I love it. I just think it is beyond mesmerizing. Here's another thing that's interesting, which I just found out this year. It has nothing to do with anything here. So there's a football game that goes on for 3.5 hours. James, you know this because you know your network carries it. Does anybody have any guess at how long the football is actually in play in the 3.5 hours of the broadcast?
3 seconds.
It's under 15 minutes. So truly, it's about the commercials. And unfortunately, this year, my opinion, I have no poll, I didn't do anything in it, I just didn't think it was a great year. You know, it was a disappointing year in terms of that. Why is that?
I think we were talking about it earlier, and I think, you know, there is, and just apropos of this conversation around the economy and all of these things, I think there's what we have to guard against in the creative industries, both with respect to filmmaking, television, but also advertising and the way we run businesses in general, is we need to guard against fear. And this is the issue. There's a real fear, I think, of failure. And when the creative process really shifts towards safety in an environment of extreme pressure after having had a terrible shock, with all of these businesses, you know, really having a big problem in 2009, then it takes a while to get out of that. And I think confidence and the ability to take risks, as Jeffrey was saying, is fundamental. And I think it has shifted, just sort of in general, where companies, creative companies in particular, are a little more fearful. But, you know, to the point about art and commerce, I think, you know, the art is sharper for being accountable as well, in terms of what is it trying to achieve, what are we trying to do with audiences, what are we trying to sell. So you have to, I think, see that hopefully as just a product of the cycle right now, but coming out of it, it will be good. I know personally, just not just as someone in a creative company, but as a marketeer as well. You know, when you're under pressure to sell subscription services, to sell newspapers, to sell TV packages, you can be driven by commerce too much, and then you always have to guard against it and say, well, actually, am I investing enough in my brand? Am I investing enough in taking big creative leaps with my brand and connecting it to customers in the right way that may not be as obviously sharply accountable there? And I think we have to be very, very cautious about that, because otherwise we get into a run where really we turn off our customers because we're not talking to them in an engaging, in a resonant, and in a really powerful way.
We had a debate about this before as well. Maybe there's a confidence that comes from owning 70% of the company and 40% of the votes in the company. So maybe you have a slightly stronger position than many people who run listed companies and indeed private companies who don't have that certainty.
I disagree with that.
Okay, fine. I thought that might.
No. You know what he's talking about. No, that's not the point. Is that a creative endeavor? I mean, that doesn't mean you get to fail all the time. It just means that within the equation of how you build a business, you have a business model. We look at it in terms of our movies that we make. You know, we've got a couple $100 million in the bank. We can, you know, one of our movies misses. It's not going to take the company down. It's not going to destroy the value of the enterprise. And this is maybe because we have that, we're now 15 for 15. We've put out 15 movies in a row now over a 8-year period of time. The average box office of which is over $500 million. We've never actually had a miss, but because I think we have the ability to have a miss is part of that. It has nothing to do with ownership or control. I don't.
So why are the others not doing it? Just so we're quite clear. Why, you know, when I spoke to you about coming to Cannes a few months ago as a health business, you said, "Oh, it's awful, basically. It's really tough, and profitability on movies is down." And what needs to change? Are the bean counters in control?
No. Hollywood is, and the movie industry as a whole, is probably in its most disruptive point of transformation that certainly in my 40 years of being around doing it. I mean, it's not even close. It's by an order of magnitude the complexity of what is going on. And so you have a perfect storm of things that have occurred, which is, first and foremost, we came into 2008 in which the proposition of price value for everything in anybody's life was put up for reevaluation. And in that moment in time, consumers started to look at the ownership, the purchase of DVD movies in a completely different light than they had before. So a lot of pressure on price value of, do I need to buy a movie that I'm going to watch once or twice? At the same time, a transition of new technology coming into the marketplace, not as real or as realizable in the moment as it was going to be. So you knew it was coming even though it wasn't there, so the impact of knowing it's coming had affected the decisions being made. So the financial pressure of going through a transition from a hard goods platform to a digital platform, which has not yet occurred. It is occurring, and it is absolutely going to occur. In the fourth quarter of last year, 2% of DreamWorks Animation sales were digital. 2%. 98% of it was in hard goods. And we had 2 top 10 performers in there. So the promise of it is coming, but the consumer is looking at and changing their habits at the same time it's going. So that is just a formula for a very difficult, very challenging market. So
now, one of the reasons getting the two of you here, and we want to do more of this, is because we want to try and get agencies to work with content producers, content owners, the media companies, just as they do with clients. So, James, what are the technologies, the technological developments that really excite you? And we know that high def and 3D are on the agenda, iPads, but do you want to just take everybody through how you think we can build a stronger relationship with News Corp?
Well, I guess first of all, I think that the whole marketplace, we had lots of marketplaces in the past, and today we're in what we talk about in our company is sort of the all media marketplace, where everything is digital and it's very, very seamless in between different product sets. So if you have a tablet, for example, and you want to watch one of DreamWorks movies, it's a button over here, and if you want to read the Wall Street Journal, it's a button over here, and if you want to play a game, it's a button over here. So for a customer, consumption across previously different markets is now a completely straightforward and frictionless experience for a lot of customers. I think it becomes a very, very powerful product then when we think about how creatively we apply ourselves to it. So if you look at, in a digital marketplace where we're able to deploy new technology faster, be it to get HD capability to all of our customers across Europe, for example, which has really revolutionized our business in Europe, which was slow to come to HD, much slower than the US for various reasons. 3D as well is something that, being able to bring to customers' homes is very exciting, because as a sort of creative trajectory, irrespective of whether or not there have been missteps in the filmmaking and did they make good enough pictures, or does it, and I know Jeffrey has lots of views on this, but in terms of did it justify that price value proposition, we think bringing really much more immersive experience to customers is something that's very, very exciting, both in the theater as well as in the home, that we can do that. And we're out of the home in venues like pubs where 3D football, for example, in the UK has been hugely popular, where people go and make an event of it, and that's not that it's a way to carry the web around with you or it's a new digital platform. For the newspaper business, it's an incredible new paper stock that prints perfectly all the time, that has incredible color, that you can tell stories audio-visually as well as with the written word. And we're really seeing a revolution in how storytelling is happening in people's hands. So that's very exciting.
That has to pay for.
Well, we believe that if we're sufficiently differentiated and we're investing in product, be it Avatar or maintaining bureaus in Benghazi, if that's something that's different and good, then people will pay for it as long as we price it fairly. And actually, we're seeing that happen. I mean,
do you want to
the
say
Times in the
Times
UK, the Times, and I think every delegate has a passport to become a Times iPad customer. But if you have an iPad, you should do that. We will give it to you. You have it free for a week, and you'll see what we're doing there. But that now is outpacing all of the declines in our traditional Times business, the printed copy Times business. Remember, that has paper associated with it, that has distribution costs that are higher. We have to truck heavy things around the countries, etc. Now the Times is a newspaper that is growing pretty quickly on a paid-for basis when you take the total universe of customers into account. And that's something that's very, very different dynamics. So we look at our journalism business as something that's maybe one of our most exciting businesses going forward, from Sky News to the Times to the Wall Street Journal, as really core creatively for our readers and our customers.
How many subscribers have you got paying for content on Times now?
The last time we announced our numbers was the last quarter, so a quarter ago. It was about 230,000 there, and that's the universe, remember, of printed readers of sort of just under 500,000. So it's a big number.
And Wall Street Journal.
The Wall Street Journal has a combined subscription, but it's well over 1 million digital customers now.
Now, Jeffrey is the man who famously said to, I don't know if it's your people or to somebody, if you don't like coming in on Saturday, don't bother to come in on Sunday. You should come and work at WPP.
Yet DreamWorks, and I'll now to go smoke. DreamWorks consistently is rated one of the top 10 places to work in America.
Well, you've got some very strong views on that, which you may want to voice. You were similarly very direct about 3D. You basically think it's not very good.
No, I think it is probably the single greatest technology innovation that has come as an opportunity to Hollywood in many, many decades. And, what has been disappointing, if not nearly devastating, is how badly it's been squandered. Suddenly here is this amazing goose ready to lay these golden eggs, and just at the moment that it was occurring, and in fact had occurred. It occurred on Avatar, it occurred for us on How to Train Your Dragon, where we saw when these tools put in the hands of real, genuine visionaries and talents, created a theater experience that was a premium. It was unlike something they had experienced before, and an opportunity to bring people back to movie theaters, who were disappointed in that experience. There are a group of people that came along and just thought, oh, this is a good opportunity, just jack up the price of tickets and deliver a sub-quality, slapped into post-production version of it. And just like that, just because of the way the world works today, the consumer instantly has been burned and turned off. And, I think there's an opportunity to bring them back. I actually believe that a movie coming out in 10 days, the next Transformer films, in which Michael Bay, who actually does know how to use these kinds of technology tools, you know, in an amazing way, I think can set the bar back high again. But, you know, it really was very disheartening to see people come in and just make a fast buck and try and pull the wool over the consumer's eyes and, you know, and quickly get smacked down.
Hence your comment about the trash of the clocks.
I don't remember saying that.
I don't remember saying that.
But I think the other thing is it happened right at a time, as Jeff was saying, where customers were making hard choices about where they were going to invest for their families, right? So it happened, you know, as the 3D stuff sort of really took off in 2009, really. That was exactly the same moment where people were saying, hang on a minute, you know, if I'm going to go out to the theater and I'm taking my 2 kids or whatever it is, this is now starting to be, you know, a $100 outing for a family of 4 with food and all that sort of nonsense. So it was exactly the wrong time just to kind of create a position where you were fundamentally not on the side of your customer.
And you weren't delivering.
And customers are smart.
You weren't delivering what you promised.
Yeah.
Now, just when we talked about you coming to Cannes, Jeffrey, you said there was some technology you're developing that would be of interest to our industry, and you say it's not ready yet. It's coming, so hopefully we can entice you back again to show everybody here the impact on it. But you become a director of Zynga. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you did that, what you see in the gaming area?
Yeah, well, but just to just in an amazing way, which is technology is actually the friend of the artist, and we're seeing more and more how these tools are so powerful, putting them in the hands of artists. It is allowing them to realize and create images and stories and visual experiences that are richer and richer and richer. And for us, on every single movie we make, it is a stated goal to actually try and exceed our customers' expectations, and that is where technology continues to be a great value for us. And we are working on some things that will revolutionize not just the image, not just how we make the images, but the end images themselves, and they will be relevant to the advertising agency. They're about a year or so away. It's something we've done in conjunction with Intel. In terms of Zynga, I just see, as I think we all do, how powerful and impactful what is sort of a new form of entertainment. And I think that entertainment is in its infancy. I think that if we were to make the analogy, it's kind of where silent film was. So I think it has literally that level of trajectory in terms of where it is today. It's basic, it's very, very compelling, it's very engaging. It has, it's very simplistic in it, in terms of the imaging and the storytelling, but it works like gangbusters. And I just think it is going to continue to grow and be explosive. And I think Mark Pincus is one of the real great entrepreneurs and real creative visionaries. So to be on the inside and watching that place take off and grow the way it is frankly teaching me in all kinds of ways.
It's more them teaching you than you're teaching them.
I don't know. You have to ask them on the other side of it. I hope I'm bringing value to them.
One thing just occurred to me as you were talking that we talk a lot about our industry, about size and scale and the like. You produce 2 or 3 films a year. Is size the enemy of creativity? I mean, is part of your commentary about at the beginning about art and commerce that the bigger these companies become, the worse they get?
It doesn't have to be. News Corp's one of the largest companies in the world, media companies in the world, and in almost every area they function in, there's a line of products that they come out with that are exceptional. They have exceptional big blockbuster movies, they have exceptional art films, make some of the greatest television shows, now had reinvented American Idol for, one more go-round. That was a creative challenge. To make that show, which had been sort of declining in interest, and to bring in a group of people and to actually remake that into something that is now re-energized again, that's an incredible accomplishment. I mean, that's happened rarely. So, no, I don't think that size necessarily. For me personally, I'm excited by being able to focus a huge amount of time and energy to a very small number of things that, just excite me, and I don't know, there's enough size and scale to it keeps me plenty busy, so.
Okay. I think it's one of the big challenges, though, if I could just elaborate on that, because as a, for us, really, we're a large company, we're sort of we have lots and lots of companies as part of the group. And we have lots of brands from, Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal to Fox or Star or the Sky brands, and these businesses are National Geographic. And the real issue is how do we keep the sort of creative culture, and how do we keep that commitment to making sure people can be entrepreneurial, making sure they can take risks here, making sure that they, it's okay if they take a risk and they feel it's better than not taking a risk and not doing anything. All of those cultural pressures are much higher. And the real issue becomes, though, that as the competitive set shifts, we're not big enough. So when you actually look at the competitive set in an all-media marketplace where you have, sort of monolithic brands from Google and Apple, et cetera, to, the big former PTTs, from Telefonica to Deutsche Telekom, or, Verizon, et cetera, the sort of all the kind of characters on a playing field or a terrain that has essentially collapsed. There are much, much bigger beasts than a News Corporation or a Time Warner or whatever it is. And that is a real challenge for us going forward. And how do we make sure that we can compete at scale globally, as these new players do, and these established players do, and still be quick and creative and risk-taking? And I think it's something that's very much unresolved, and a big factor of how this thing plays out over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be how we do that, and how we actually make ourselves as good at a much bigger scale as we can be, because otherwise we will fail.
So B-Sky is just the beginning?
Well, look, I think the Sky business, all the Sky businesses around the world, there are 6 Skies around the world, from New Zealand to India to Germany, Italy, and the UK, and sort of an Australian TV platform that's now called Sky. But it's but they're, each one of them, our media business is one that's a local business in every place, right? Because consumers' tastes are local, they tell stories in different ways. There's a completely different thing that they sort of set aside if you're looking at a Bollywood kind of viewer versus someone in South America. But the sort of national nature of those businesses doesn't work well with competing on a global basis with sort of, monolithic brands like Google, right? We cooperate with Google a lot as well, but, there's also a competitive dynamic for
So they're a friend of mine too.
This is your you like
It's
that
not
phrase?
mine. No, it was a young woman from Harvard Business School, actually, who coined that phrase. It wasn't mine. I nicked it.
But look, the fact of the matter is, this is a complex business environment, right? You have to be sort of mature enough to say, listen, you're going to have deep partnerships with companies that you're going to be trying to absolutely throttle over here, right? And you have to be, and I think you have to remember all the time that you're playing the ball, not the man, right? And, we have great partnerships with, a great partnership, for example, with ESPN in Asia, where we're partners in a big sports business across Asia, particularly in India. Yet in the U.S., our Fox Sports regional business and ESPN are at each other for rights, for customers, for viewers, and that's fine. And I think with Google, we have lots of relationships with all of the digital marketplace. Connecting to our customers and our viewers via Facebook, using the whole social sort of element to a digital marketplace. I mean, it's fundamental, the way we market things, the way we deal with our customers, the way we provide them new services. But at the same time, there's a competition for people's time and attention that's relevant for all of us.
Now, we talked about the power of tablets, and we talked a little bit about when we go to the Allen Company Sun Valley conference, on the list of attendees, always Steve Jobs is always listed as an attendee but never comes. You know Steve well, Jeffrey, and you have, as we all do, a tremendous admiration for what he's done and what we're sure he will still do. Do you want to say a little bit about the power of tablets?
Well, I haven't seen Stephen. I saw him last spring, but I wish I had more contact with him over the years. But when the tablet came out, and I had a chance to chat with him a little bit about having an opportunity to experience it myself. I think it is arguably the most powerful and impactful device that's been created in our lifetime, for sure. Maybe, certainly, maybe to date of anything. And we're only beginning to see the what are the opportunities and the implications of it. And so, whether you look at it as an educational device where literally 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, will have, simplistic versions of these, but in terms of engaging kids at a very young age and giving them access to information and education and just developmental skills, it's just a mind-blowing device. And the thing that I think is ultimately so compelling about it and so genius about it is it actually should have been called the MePad, not the iPad, because every one of these is a direct reflection of who we are personally. It is like looking in the mirror when you look at what are the apps that you have on it, that it actually tells you or can tell one so much about who somebody is and what their interests are and what they want to know about and how they go about their life in this. And then I was telling James, I was with Jim Giannopoulos 2 days ago at a meeting, and he had his iPad, and I took his iPad away from him. And grabbed it just like I'm grabbing yours, Martin. And I quickly went to the front page of it, and I wasn't actually interested in any of the actual business they were doing, but I'm so fascinated at being able to look at the icons here, because the fact that there is so much pornography on them, just an amazing amount about this very. I hope this isn't yours, Mark, because this is pretty sick. Anyway, but when you look at it in terms of, again, just the things that are on here, productivity and shopping and social and travel, and I literally could take one of these things and it would tell you everything about the owner of this, or so much about the owner of this, and that is the power of the device.
And you said that Steve started with you, James. So we're just at the beginning of the journey.
Well, that's what's so interesting about it, is that this thing is going in leaps and bounds, and I think there's been a breakthrough in terms of some of the hard engineering work that goes into developing a multi-touch screen that works, doing it in a weight and a battery life that works, and all of those sort of difficult things. You have that, you have a connected environment with Wi-Fi, coming 4G, and all of this sort of business. And essentially, it is, this thing is brand new. I mean, this thing launched this year, right? Or just last year.
Literally, it is 1 year.
Brand new. And, the journey started with, talking about personal computers and the tablets, the old Newton platform. There was then the Palm stuff and all of this thing. So where are we going to be 10 years from now is a completely different place, and you'll have, these things will be more flexible, lighter. And I think the synchronicity between these screens is what's going to become so powerful.
Right. So here's one that just, I am convinced, if I didn't have a full-time job, I'd go do this in a second tomorrow, because somebody is going to do this, and it is going to become a force beyond anything Hollywood has ever seen before. Here it is. Somebody's going to create a website here, in which you'll subscribe to it. You'll go on and you'll answer 10 questions about movies, things you like, you don't like, you historically like, and it will automatically aggregate you to a group of people who actually think and have those same likes that we do. We see this kind of, factoring and predictability being built into these things. And so what will happen is now on Friday, you'll when a movie's coming out, you actually will go online, you'll go to this website, you'll go to that group of people, and by the way, there could be 5,000 people that think like you, or 5 million people that think like you in this. You will know with a high degree of predictability whether you actually want to go see that movie or not. Now here's the good news, bad news about it. It actually means movies have to be good. You can't get away with the idea that you could just simply market marketability. You know, one of the things that is probably slightly out of whack today in my world is that there is too much emphasis on marketability and not enough on playability. This is going to literally yank that back into playability being the single most powerful element that you have to succeed at as a storyteller.
It's a really interesting point, because in a digital, it strikes me, in a digital environment that's completely connected, what you have, and there's a lot of talk here in Canada about, the social aspects of things, and it's not really, the social dimension of a digital connected environment, which is manifest, it's there, right? Really is so crucial precisely for this reason, because it's about, first of all, there's going to be nowhere to hide, right, for products that can't stack up, right, or for creators who maybe haven't been doing their best jobs. There's nowhere to hide, number one, but also it's very hard to find things simultaneously. So the social aspect of discovery is going to be necessary when you have kind of that much plurality. So I think for every brand, for every product, from a movie to
I'm on a blog about being here with these guys. I needed a picture.
This is something, this dynamic is fundamental, and I think being able to use the social tools to actually discover products, content, whatever it is going to be necessary, because otherwise you're just going to be lost in an environment of plurality that is so extreme, you'll end up not discovering anything, and that's the sort of paradox of that environment.
Now, Jeffrey touched on the educational value of the tablet. You're building an education business. Joe Kleinman, who used to run the schools in New York, has joined News Corp, and his work, you made your first acquisition, I think, in the education.
Yeah.
Do you want to say a little bit about the role of education?
Sure. We acquired a small company, not small, but a company called a startup called Wireless Generation, which is bringing digital technology to schools, particularly around assessment, and it's to the point of nowhere to hide, right? I mean, one of the key things here is how do you become very, very data-driven and making kids get better grades and giving them a better education? And we're not that data-driven today in classrooms. And I guess our view is that in classrooms around the world, with the exception of some kind of real innovators out there, pretty much they're the same today as they were 50 years ago. There's somebody standing in front of a bunch of kids, maybe 40 kids, something like that, and they've got a blackboard or a whiteboard or something, whatever the equivalent is. And they're trying to create, and they're working hard, and they're trying to create a dynamic that they can help these kids learn. Our view is that that is an area that is really the next place where digital technology is going to create a revolution, right? And it's going to be a revolution around individualized teaching, it's going to be around assessment and teacher performance as well, and it's going to be around cost, because we basically live in a society where, in all our societies, very huge investments have been made in our education system, but the outputs aren't right. So over time, you can look at the data and say, well, what we've essentially been investing in is more teachers, right? And that's been the big bet in Western society around education policy, and it hasn't gotten the right outcome, and we're seeing scores go down in the West and all these things. So you really have to turn that on its head and say, actually, what we need to invest in is the technology here to actually make it much more individualized for students. But frankly, when we find good teachers, what is the technology that can get them in front of as many kids as possible? And that's really the different dynamic that's happening now. And I think, early stages shows that real time, when you get these tablets and you get it all connected properly in a school, the curriculum is more engaging, to the point that Jeffrey was making about kids enjoying sort of, interacting with multi-touch screens and doing these things. Assessment is in real time, so you get much, much better results very quickly, and you can really tackle if a kid's falling behind, or if a kid needs to be challenged more because they're doing better. And teachers are also accountable in a way that is, completely different from the sort of process-driven accountability that's been in the past. So we're very excited about it, and we think it's a new business for us, but we think a place where, there are a number of companies doing a good job, and everyone's focused on this, from Houghton Mifflin to others, etc. But there's a big amount of room to go in and actually create something new and really innovative.
You didn't mention Piz.
Well, I mean, I think incumbency is really a hard thing. And Pearson's focusing a lot on digital education. Actually, they've made some acquisitions as well. But I think, generally speaking, I think it's a hard thing for the market leader to really transform itself. The market leaders rarely have the appetite for change that they need to have to compete. And that's a challenge for every company. But they're a great company, and they've done incredible things. So it's going to be a very competitive marketplace, but it's going to grow.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'd like to turn to two countries that, obviously China just won its first Grand Prix here this year. India 2 years ago. The right agency won both. I won't go further than that.
We're waiting for the plug.
No, you don't get it's a much more subtle plug. China, Jeffrey, for you has been more than a home run. It's been a World Series. Kung Fu Panda 2 has done incredibly well. The highest grossing picture in China?
Well, after Avatar. But it just shows the explosive growth of China, the opportunity of China, the challenge and frustrations of China. Kung Fu Panda, which came out a few weeks ago, is going to end up grossing $90 million in the country, which is extraordinary. It was released on 5,500 screens, 4,000 of which were 3D. In North America, it was released on 7,200 screens, about 3,600 of which were 3D. So just to show you, they're building, I am told, at the rate of 2.5 new screens per day. So in 4 years, 5 years, it'll be the biggest movie marketplace in the world. And, I think the balance of what's going on is that what China wants, needs, deserves is an indigenous movie, television, animation, creation, a business. And that's a fantastic opportunity, and one that I hope we'll all join in. I think they're less interested in simply exporting others' products into the country. There's a high degree of censorship. None on our movies, I have to say. Every single one of our movies has been imported and given a license into the country, but we've never been asked to censor a frame out of a film. Never. But it is. It's a different culture, different government, different society in that regard, and so there are those issues, and I think that's what they're going to struggle with is that to fill these theaters, fill these channels, fill the customers and the consumer opportunity there is going to take expression, creative expression, movies, television, art, and at the same time, they're not comfortable with that yet. So there's the tension.
Do you think they're going to have to get comfortable with it?
Well, they will. I mean, listen, they're way more comfortable with it today than they were. It's not by our standards, but by their standards. What you see that's gone on in that country in the last 20 years is remarkable. By our standards, it's still very, very, very restrictive.
Now, James, as a media owner, life in China is much tougher for a foreigner.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough, particularly in sort of in the television and business. It is tough, but there are extraordinary companies in China that are doing well. I mean, we're an investor. We were a founding investor in Phoenix Satellite TV there, which has been really the only independent TV kind of company there. We're a minority investor in that. We're a partner with. We have a partnership with Shanghai, a derivative of sort of Shanghai Media and others, where we're a large minority, 40%. But we've taken our domestic TV business and really put it into that joint venture. Because ultimately we concluded after being in China for a long time, really, to have a domestic business, you really have to be, it has to be a Chinese business. And it's from a regulatory perspective, from other things, it's just too difficult. You contrast that with what's happened in India, and you have, we've had a revolution from a creative perspective in India over the last sort of dozen years or so on television, where the quality and the diversity and the creativity of the Indian television production community has just gone from strength to strength. Obviously, Bollywood, well-established, vibrant creative industry there, very fragmented, so independent producers everywhere making, very good returns, and foreign investment very possible. I mean, we've made some very successful Indian pictures, as well as we're the largest broadcaster in India today with Star, the Star group of channels in multiple languages, from Marathi to Malayalam to the core sort of Hindi northern market. So it's a fundamentally different place, and I think this notion of as chaotic as it is, and they don't have the 3D infrastructure and all of that sort of stuff, the tradition of free expression and the sort of the rough and tumble of that competitive marketplace driven by enterprise to create things that are great and that appeal to people has produced a very different result than a more tightly controlled, top-down sort of thing. And that's Jeffrey's exactly right. That is where that tension is, to fill those theaters. And to do all those things, you're going to need a lot of different enterprises really taking risks in terms of storytelling and doing it at a quality level that is, that has to punch, at a global weight class.
After Steven Spielberg, who went to Anil Ambani and got, $500 million for his production budget? So he went to India because he couldn't get them on the right terms, presumably, in Hollywood.
Well, there's there's a great enthusiasm for bringing, I think, Western movie making there. Reliance, the Ambani companies, they are the largest exhibitor in the country. They're the largest distributor in the country. They're, one of the larger telcos and so forth, and television companies. So they're trying to build out, and I think they saw this as a good investment in, one, learning, and two, then being able to import that knowledge.
Now, one of the things that has been debated here at Cannes, as we draw to a close, the last 5 minutes or so, one of the things we debated at Cannes is the amazing performance of television, traditional television, free-to-air, the rebound that we saw in 2010, and to some extent has continued into 2011, and the upfronts, as you know, were very strong. I mean, they were double-digit, close to double-digit in the increase in CPMs. So inflation in network television has been very significant. How do you explain the strength of TV?
I would say that the success of TV has not been limited to free-to-air TV. I mean, in America, it's harder to say because you have almost ubiquitous pay television distribution. So, and now with retransmission consent, everyone's watching on the same networks. But the point is, mass market sort of televisual entertainment has been going through a renaissance. I believe where, what's interesting relative to what Jeffrey started with, talking about sort of balance between art and commerce and filmmaking or in advertising this, the television business has been incredible creatively, just extraordinary with respect to franchises that are in the U.S. from an Idol to Sons of Anarchy to new productions that are everywhere around the world. We've just announced we're investing in Sky in the UK. We're going to be increasing dramatically our investment in local production there to £600 million a year. So I think this is something that, with the right mix of investment and the right level of risk taking, you just have an enormous creative moment right now where there are lots of producers, lots of writers, lots of people who are just doing a good job. I think some of it may be that we're used to television shows failing, right? In the US, you go and you throw a bunch of new TV shows out in the fall, traditionally, and a bunch of them will fail, and they get yanked, and you try something different, and you do this and that. And, but that's okay, and everybody knows that, and you have sort of an attrition rate that's pretty ruthless, and then you have some stuff that comes through very, very, very well. But it has been extraordinary. I think as well there's been,
diversification. You look at the diversification of cable, it's just been a blockbuster for creativity. And so, when you look at, what is being produced, whether it's by AMC or Turner or Showtime or HBO, it's moved into a very diverse and very vibrant and very, very, I think rich world in which broadcasting is sort of been redefined in terms of what people want. And that diversity is just at the very beginning. The penetration of diversity like that is at the very beginning in Western Europe and particularly in Asia. So where you have, where you don't have multi-channel television in every household, you don't have pay television providing the funds actually for creative producers to actually have some certainty and move forward. So I actually think, this is a wave that's going to keep going. So let's look at some questions from people. Mark.
Yeah, well, here we go. Ben Lilly, Morgan Spurlock's latest film is funded exclusively by advertisers. This is for you, Jeff. Is this a glimpse of the future of filmmaking, and what does this mean for original creative storytelling?
Well, I think that again, There is probably a place in the filmmaking world for, again, what is a very niche film and is sort of narrow casting. You know, we spend, $150 million making a animated film, 4 years and 400 people, and $175 million marketing it. We're in the, 4-quadrant worldwide business, and that's a very, very different enterprise. But, so that's the high end of it. Our 2 movies are 2 of the 10 most expensive films produced each year. And then we have to perform in the top 10 or 15 in order to succeed. They come in all shapes and sizes. News Corp had some blockbuster success. Black Swan and some of the films that have come out of the Searchlight division. So yeah, I think there is a place for it.
One for James. What's the future of this comes from John Woodward. What's the future of advertising in digital newspapers like Times on iPad? How can it provide value for customers? What role will it play in the financial model? How different will it be from what we know today?
Well, I think newspaper advertising is going through, is going to go through a great period actually, because when you look at these tablets, or even like the Kindle, which has been really successful, and a lot of our customers in the Journal and the Times actually read it on the Kindle as well. That being able to, it's been very resilient actually. But I mean, we're seeing really a revolution in reading, and I think that's bringing journalism and written word journalism to a new audience with much more capability in the devices they have. So for us, we look at it and see, as more and more of our customers, as a percentage of our total customers, consume the Times, for example, digitally as opposed to in a printed product that has to be delivered to them and is static. Once it's printed, it's done. This dynamic digital product is something that is our flagship product, and we want to be able to take our advertisers across the piece and say, for the digital part of that buy, we want you to be able to do more things. We want you to be able to connect directly with your customers. We want to be able to tell more stories for you, put in a lot more features, depending on what our clients and what our advertisers want to do. And I just encourage you to use our products. I mean, the Times digital edition is something that really does do a lot more for advertisers. And I'm inclined to say if we can solve that advertising piece over the next few years, and you hosted an event with us in London, I thank you for that, to bring a bunch of clients in to look at this stuff, is actually, our returns and our yields on that product are actually better going forward than in the very expensive physical, printed product that we have to mill, run through printing presses, put on trucks, get out to a newsstand or to your house. This is a much more flexible product that actually we have every incentive to grow and drive, but we want to bring our advertisers with us there because it's really where they're going to have the biggest connection with their customers creatively, I think.
Okay, cheeky one from Lucas Pierre Bessis. The owner of the Italian media, the owner of the Italian media company Fininvest went into politics to grow successfully market share. Will James run for president or at least governor, and if yes, in which country?
Exactly. No, I think
That guy's waving at you over there.
Don't worry about it. Ignore him. I've got 2 more questions for you.
No, I think the Prime Minister's kind of unique business model there is one that we would probably be best to avoid.
Model being the appropriate word.
Yeah.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
you're heavily involved in politics. You're a media mogul. Is Obama going to get re-elected?
Yes.
Well, you're
Yes. Seems so easy to forget that this president came into office and inherited what is arguably the worst set of circumstances of any president in 100 years. Most of the issues that he is dealing with today are not of his making. And they, unfortunately, all have such a high degree of complexity to it that, unfortunately, there is not a right or wrong answer. And there is no quick solve to it. And so that leads to a frustration that I think Americans have. And we have, as I mentioned earlier, a political system that is literally gone off the rails. It's run by extremism. and it's the most unhealthy thing. I've been involved in politics my whole life. I started in politics, working for the mayor of New York City as a teenager. And government in America, politics was about coming to a consensus, a win and a lose. And once that occurred, there then was a collaboration to actually do what was in the best interest of the country. And our politicians have forgotten that. When you had the head of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, openly say in the New York Times earlier this week, that I don't care what the issue is, I don't care what the circumstances are. If Barack Obama is for it, I'm against it. What the hell is that? So,
James?
tough.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah, no. I was going to come to a much hotter potato. Are you going to buy Formula One?
You're the chairman of Formula One.
No, I'm not.
You can't ask me that question.
I'm not executive director. Thank you. Big thank you to Jeffrey.